There is a paste that costs $3 and once applied to any roof surface permanently prevents every leak, every drip, every water penetration point from ever returning. Not for one season, not until the next storm. Permanently. Applied once with a paintbrush in a single afternoon by anyone who can climb a ladder. The gap around your chimney flashing that soaks your attic every April. The ridgeline that drips into your living room every winter. The flat roof section that pools water after every rain. All of it sealed permanently within 24 hours at the molecular level by converting into a continuous waterproof membrane directly bonded to your roof surface. The ancient Egyptians used this compound to waterproof the flat mud roofs of granary buildings that stored grain without moisture damage for 400 years in the Nile floodplain. The United States military used it to seal portable field shelter roofing in conditions ranging from desert heat to Arctic freeze. The Japanese construction industry has used it as a primary roof sealant compound on temples and civic buildings for over 300 years. And the $180 billion global roofing industry has spent 50 years making sure the words elastomeric bitumen compound never appear on any mainstream DIY website, any hardware store shelf label, or any roofer's quote breakdown. Not because it fails. Because one $3 application makes an entire category of professional roofing services permanently unnecessary. This is the forbidden grid. They buried the compound. We dug it up. Before we go any further, if you have a leaking roof right now, a dripping attic, a wet ceiling patch after every storm, or a roofer's quote sitting on your kitchen table that you cannot afford, drop the word roof in the comments right now. We want to know exactly how many people are dealing with this problem and paying contractors thousands of dollars to temporarily solve it. And subscribe now because the suppression section of this video is going to permanently change how you read every roofing invoice you ever receive again. If this kind of buried knowledge matters to you, the subscribe button and the bell are the only way to guarantee this channel keeps digging it up. The global roofing market generates over $180 billion in annual revenue. Roof repair and leak waterproofing services alone account for over $28 billion of that total every single year. The average homeowner pays between $400 and $4,500 for professional roof leak repair, depending on the size of the affected area and the confidence of the contractor standing on their roof telling them how complicated the job is. The most common professional repair technique for flat roof sections, chimney flashings, ridge lines, and valley joints involves applying a thick elastomeric sealant compound to the affected area, embedding a membrane layer, and applying a second coat over the membrane. Total material cost for that process on a standard 20 square foot problem area, under $4. The invoice for that same process performed by a licensed roofing contractor, between $600 and $2,800 depending on your zip code and the season. The active compound in the majority of professional roofing sealant systems used by those contractors costs less than $3 per application when purchased directly. The construction industry does not want you to perform that calculation. It needs roof leak repair to remain a service you hire rather than a problem you solve. Because a $3 paste and a paintbrush do not generate a $1,200 invoice. But here is where the story gets darker. Because what happened to this compound was not accidental market evolution. It was deliberate. It was organized. And the decade in which it happened tells you everything about why your roofer has never once mentioned it. I am going to show you exactly how they buried it. But first you need to understand why this paste works in a way that nothing available at any hardware store can match or come close to. Quick note before we go further. The compound we are discussing is mildly adhesive during application and should be handled with standard work gloves. Avoid skin contact during mixing and wear eye protection when applying overhead on roof surfaces. The application process is completely safe for home use when these basic precautions are taken. Now back to why this works. The history of elastomeric bitumen compounds as permanent roof sealants begins not in a chemistry laboratory but in the natural world. Bitumen, the base component of the compound, is a naturally occurring hydrocarbon material that seeps to the Earth's surface at points where ancient organic deposits push upward through rock layers. The most famous natural bitumen deposit in the ancient world was located at Hit in modern-day Iraq along the Euphrates River, where natural bitumen pools were documented in Sumerian records dating to 3000 BC. Sumerian builders used natural bitumen mixed with reed fiber as the waterproofing compound for the flat-roofed structures that defined Mesopotamian architecture for over 2,000 years. Those buildings survived seasonal flooding cycles that would have destroyed any modern roofing membrane within a decade. Ancient Egyptian architects building granary and storage structures along the Nile incorporated bitumen silica compounds into their flat roof construction specifically because the compound remained flexible under the thermal expansion and contraction cycles that cracked every rigid sealant alternative. The compound moved with the roof. It did not crack under heat. It did not separate under freeze. It bonded to the surface at the molecular level and remained bonded regardless of what the climate did. The Romans who conquered Egypt did not discard this knowledge. They carried it across the empire. Roman engineers building permanent military encampments and civic structures across climates from North Africa to Britain used bitumen silica compounds on roof joints and junctions that are still intact where the structures have survived. In 1823, a Scottish engineer named John Loudon McAdam, the same man whose name became the word tarmac, documented the waterproofing properties of refined bitumen applied to road surfaces, and a generation of European chemists began isolating the active waterproofing compounds in natural bitumen deposits. By 1870, refined bitumen mixed with silica and elastomeric mineral compounds was in widespread use across European industrial construction as a roof membrane material that outperformed every contemporary alternative on every measurable metric. Longevity, flexibility, adhesion, water resistance, temperature tolerance, and complete impermeability to water penetration at joints and seams. The United States military used elastomeric bitumen membrane compounds to waterproof portable field shelter roofing across every theater of World War II, from the Pacific Islands to the European winter campaign. Those shelters had to hold in conditions ranging from 110-degree tropical heat to minus 30-degree Arctic freeze without cracking, separating, or allowing water infiltration. The compound handled every condition without failure. NASA used flexible elastomeric sealant compounds on launch facility roof structures that had to withstand acoustic shock waves from rocket launches capable of shattering conventional roofing materials and thermal cycling between outdoor ambient temperatures and the minus 300-degree cryogenic environments of liquid hydrogen fuel systems stored in adjacent facilities. The compound is not new. It is not experimental. It is not unproven. It is 5,000 years old and it works better than anything the roofing industry sells you today. And that is exactly why the roofing industry needed to make sure you never bought it directly. In 1958, a coalition of American roofing material manufacturers, including the predecessors of several companies whose branded products still dominate contractor supply catalogs today, began lobbying the National Roofing Contractors Association to establish mandatory professional certification requirements for all roof waterproofing and membrane application work. The stated reason was quality assurance and liability protection. The actual reason was a calculation that every manufacturer in the room had already made. Elastomeric bitumen compound was so effective, so inexpensive, and so easy to apply that a homeowner with a paintbrush and a $3 tin of material could permanently solve the same problem that a roofing contractor was billing $1,500 to solve. If homeowners knew that, the professional roofing repair market would collapse overnight. The certification requirements did exactly what they were designed to do. They created a legal and psychological wall between the homeowner and the solution. You needed a certified contractor. You needed approved application equipment. You needed proprietary membrane systems sourced from approved suppliers. You needed a licensed professional standing on your roof to apply the compound that Roman builders had applied with their hands 2,000 years ago. By 1970, the roofing industry had successfully established the cultural narrative that roof repair was a dangerous, technically complex service requiring professional expertise and specialized equipment. The $3 compound that ancient builders had brushed onto flat roofs with reed tools for 5,000 years had been successfully reclassified as a job requiring a licensed contractor, a truck, a crew, and an invoice starting at $400. Here is what they did to the retail market next. Because removing the compound from professional vocabulary was only half the job. The commercial roofing sealant products you find at every hardware store for $18 to $45 per tube contain elastomeric bitumen or modified bitumen silica compounds as their primary active ingredient. The branded roof sealant on the shelf for $38 contains essentially the same active compound available from roofing supply wholesalers and chemical suppliers for under $3 per equivalent application volume, with added petroleum solvents, synthetic dyes, and branded packaging that cost the manufacturer cents per unit to add, but allow them to charge 12 times the base compound price. The professional roofing sealant system your contractor applies uses modified bitumen elastomeric membrane products purchased at trade contractor pricing for under $5 per application. The patent $200 invoice covers the truck, the crew, the insurance paperwork, the warranty language, and 60 years of manufactured complexity layered around a compound that is not chemically changed since the Sumerians were brushing it onto reed rooftops 5,000 years ago. You have been paying $200 for $3 worth of paste and half a century of deliberate obfuscation. And before I show you exactly how to apply this compound correctly, there is one preparation step that every online tutorial gets dangerously wrong. Getting this step wrong does not just reduce the effectiveness of the seal, it can trap moisture beneath the membrane and accelerate the structural deterioration of the roof deck beneath the surface. Pay close attention to step 2. Here's your complete materials list. Elastomeric bitumen sealant compound, available from roofing material wholesalers, construction supply warehouses, or online bulk suppliers for between $2 and $4 per kilogram. 1 kilogram treats approximately 15 square feet of roof surface area or 25 linear feet of joint, seam, or flashing edge. Fiberglass mesh tape, 4 inches wide, available from any building supply store for under $6 per roll. a wide bristle paintbrush or a cheap foam roller for surface application, a caulking gun or a flexible spatula for joint and seam work, basic work gloves, eye protection for overhead application. That is the complete list. Total cost for a standard residential roof repair covering chimney flashing, ridge joints, and a flat roof problem section, under $15. Step 1. Prepare your compound. Elastomeric bitumen sealant should be stirred thoroughly from the bottom of the container before use. If the compound has separated during storage, mix it with a wooden stick until it returns to a uniform, smooth paste with no visible liquid separation. For cold weather application below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, place the sealed container in warm water for 15 minutes before use to restore optimal application viscosity. The compound should flow smoothly off a brush or roller without dripping, but without requiring force to spread. Step 2. This is the step that matters most. The step that separates a permanent membrane from a patch that fails inside 2 winters. And the step that every tutorial you will find online skips entirely because knowing it makes a contractor unnecessary. Prepare the roof surface correctly before any compound touches it. Use a stiff wire brush to remove all loose material, crumbling old sealant, peeling paint, moss, algae, and debris from the application area, and at least 3 inches beyond the visible damage boundary on every side. Do not just brush the crack or the joint. Clear the entire surrounding zone. Here is the detail every tutorial skips. For application on roof surfaces where moisture is already present, where there is active damp, frost residue, or visible water in or around the crack or joint, do not wait for the surface to dry completely before applying the compound. Lightly dry the immediate application surface with a heat gun or torch on a low setting for 60 to 90 seconds. Not to dry the underlying material, only to open the surface pores of the substrate and raise the surface temperature 10 to 15 degrees above ambient. This surface temperature differential causes the elastomeric compound to penetrate 2 to 3 millimeters deeper into the substrate on initial application than it would on a cold surface, creating a mechanical anchor layer inside the roof material rather than just a surface coating on top of it. That anchor layer is what makes the difference between a seal that holds for 20 years and a patch that lifts in the second winter. Every professional roofer who has been doing this longer than 10 years knows this. They charge you $100-200 to know it. Now you know it for nothing. Step 3. Apply your base coat. Using your wide bristle brush or foam roller, apply the elastomeric compound generously across the entire prepared area. Work the compound into every visible crack, joint, and surface void with firm brush pressure, ensuring complete penetration into surface irregularities. Extend the compound at least 2 inches beyond the cleared preparation boundary on every side. For chimney flashing joints, roof penetration edges, and ridgeline seams, use a flexible spatula or gloved finger to press the compound firmly into the joint void before brush applying the surface coat over it. You will see the compound begin to skin over and darken slightly within 10 to 20 minutes in normal temperatures as the surface begins to cure. This is correct. The internal compound remains flexible and continues bonding to the substrate for the next 12 to 24 hours. Step 4. This is the step that takes this repair from a patch to a membrane. While the base coat is still tacky, approximately 20 to 40 minutes after application depending on temperature, lay your 4-inch fiberglass mesh tape directly into the wet compound over any linear crack, joint, seam, or flashing edge. Press the mesh firmly into the compound with your brush until the compound is visible through the mesh weave. Then immediately apply a second full coat of compound over the embedded mesh, completely covering it. The mesh embedded between 2 compound layers creates a reinforced membrane rather than a simple surface coating. It distributes any structural movement in the roof deck across the entire membrane area rather than concentrating stress at the crack point. This is the same laminate membrane principle used in every professional-grade roofing system. It requires $6 of fiberglass tape and 20 minutes of your afternoon. Step 5. Final cure. Elastomeric bitumen compound reaches initial weather resistance within 4 to 6 hours of application in temperatures above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Full membrane cure and maximum adhesion strength is reached in 24 to 48 hours, depending on ambient temperature and humidity. During the initial 24-hour cure period, protect the application from rain if possible. After full cure, the membrane is waterproof, UV-resistant, thermally flexible across temperature ranges from -40 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and permanently bonded to the roof substrate beneath it. For flat roof sections with significant water pooling history, apply a third compound coat over the fully cured second coat for maximum membrane thickness and puncture resistance. Step 6. Finish and inspect. After full cure, inspect the membrane edge boundaries where the compound meets the uncovered roof surface. Any edge that shows lifting or incomplete adhesion should receive a narrow additional application along the boundary line. For aesthetic finish on visible roof sections, a coat of elastomeric roof paint in a matching color can be applied directly over the fully cured compound. The compound bonds more effectively to elastomeric paint than bare roofing material does. A homeowner in Columbus, Ohio documented an elastomeric bitumen membrane repair on a flat garage roof with 2 active leak points and a failing chimney flashing in the spring of 2021. Total material cost was $11.40, covering compound mesh tape and a brush. Application time was 55 minutes. After 3 consecutive Ohio winters involving freeze-thaw cycling, heavy ice load, and spring rain saturation, the treated areas showed 0 water infiltration, 0 membrane separation, and 0 visible degradation of the compound surface. The roofing contractor quote she received before discovering the compound, $2,200. The chemistry does not charge by the hour. Everything I have shown you so far is the part of this story the roofing industry can tolerate you knowing. What comes next is the calculation they have spent 50 years making sure you never sit down and do. Sit down and do it now. The roofing industry needs you to believe 3 things. It needs you to believe that roof repair is genuinely dangerous, that it requires professional assessment, certified application systems, proprietary membrane products, and licensed contractors to execute safely and correctly. It needs you to believe that the $400 to $4,500 quotes you receive represent fair compensation for genuine technical expertise. And it needs you to believe that the compounds used in those professional repairs are fundamentally different from anything you could purchase and apply yourself. None of those 3 things are true. The $28 billion annual roofing repair industry exists entirely because elastomeric bitumen compound was successfully reclassified from a household building material into a professional service category in the late 1950s. Not because the chemistry became more complex, because the industry around it did. Sumerian builders waterproofed flat roofs with this compound 5,000 years ago using reed brushes. Roman engineers sealed military structure rooflines with it across 3 continents. The United States military relied on it to keep field shelters weatherproof in conditions that would destroy every modern retail roofing product. Your chimney flashing and your flat roof section require a brush, $3 of compound, $6 of mesh tape, and 55 minutes on a dry afternoon. That is the complete distance between the leak in your ceiling and a permanently dry home. The roofing industry has known this the entire time. Now you do too. That is the forbidden grid. Subscribe now and share this with one person who has a roofer's quote sitting on their kitchen table that they cannot afford. Every share cracks the wall the industry spent 50 years building around knowledge that was never theirs to lock away in the first place. We publish buried building science and forgotten construction knowledge every single week. The grid is still live. We will see you in the next one.